Hey, hey, hey. How's it going? Me? I'm a bit tired. But you know how it is. Hey, Chilsrand and Atski. Is it Atski? I can't see. Atski. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, so today my energy level is low. So hopefully it's not too, hopefully everything will go fine. Hey, Sofa Strangler. How's it going? Man, on Friday I went and did some small touch-ups on my tattoo, and that feeling of that needle, you forget it uh, quite easily. But then when you feel it again when they're going on the skin, it's like, oh yeah, now I remember. Now I remember how annoying the sensation is. Like I explained it to the tattoo artist. Like the sensation is like that you want to just punch someone, like annoying feeling. Magshan, yeah. Today I'll try to rant about process a bit. I mean, I thought a little bit about it. I don't have anything like planned, as in like this lecture about process. But I do think it's very important. So I'll try to. Hey, cynics! Oh no, so much raiding going on. It's madness. How's it going, cynics? You guys are just joining at the beginning of the stream, which is awesome. Hey, you lords. Good morning. Welcome all raiders. We come for my brushes. Go to my Discord. You can download them. Cynic's design is fantastic, though. 13 more people. Heyo, Zealin. Heyo. For those who want my brushes, I have some of my own and lots of other people's brushes, and they're in Discord under useful links, I think, if you scroll to the very top. Hey, you have a roll? Oi. Right, so today I'll be painting on this one again, that one. As you can see, I did some changes. I made his beard white. It was too many similar tones. I was annoyed by it. And I also desaturated the floor a bit. Obviously, it's not finished, but it's time to start like harmonizing a little bit more because I'm getting a bit annoyed by those too many similar tones. Hey, time traveler hamster, time travel hamster. Cheers, you and me. We rocky run on the beach. That's cool, Sofa Strangler. Hey, Nareda. Good morning. Oh well, you can't have my work under NDA. Or I won't have any time or ability to do any more work under NDA because I'm breaching them and I will be sued. Right, so let's start the timer. It's time, and as promised, I will rant about process today. I was kind of touching the subject, touching on the subject on Friday. If I get shake that touching it comment, man. So I was touching on the subject of process and the importance of process, and I thought like, oh, I should actually. I started ranting about it at the very end of the stream, and I thought, well, it's a good topic. I think it's worth spending a little bit more time about, because it's a very easy mistake a lot of beginners do. It's not a mistake, it's just a lack of knowledge of process. Um, and I think that's one of the benefits of doing studies of other artists, that like I always recommend, find an artist that you connect with. Flow Wizard, yeah. An artist that you connect with in style, or the way he or she paints things, right? Because you need to first be impressed by it, in the sense of like, oh, I can see myself paint this way, right? Because at the beginning we don't really know what our personal style is, but it comes with practice. And the more you think about how you actually want to paint, that makes you happy, you know. You shouldn't just take the most successful artist out there and say, that's the way I want to paint, because, you know, if it's too far away from how you like innately love to draw, it's not going to be well. You know, it's going to be forced. But you know, just like fixed marriages, you can learn to love it. It's the same with process. If it's too alien, like from how you innately create something. Hey, Art Phronix, cheers for the follow, much appreciated. Hey, Quentin. You know, it's going to be awkward, anyways. Um, so what I was getting to with this weird offshoot was process. And one thing that you should study when you do find an artist that you love the look of, and you know, like, I would love to paint like this. This feels very close to heart. Then you'll find some information about process from that artist. You know, how does this artist start the painting, um, and how, you know, what's the approach. So that's really important that you try to study, but that's secondary. But what you do learn about studying someone's process, usually you will like the art from someone that's quite skilled, right? And what process is, the importance of process is that it's much like you know, like a language. You have to construct sentences so that other people understand you. But with process, it's more like, as I see it, of course. For me, process is the correct way to paint something, in which steps. And the more unsure you are about the steps, the harder the harder of the time you're gonna have to paint something. And that's why sketching and doing studies, and studies of your own subject matter, for example, if you're going to paint a character, let's say a monster, or a woman, or whatever, a portrait, you do smaller studies where you practice drawing, or thinking about palette, or you remove things that might hold you back, so that you know exactly what to do. But that um, also requires you to know your own uh, approach, right? Which is a part of the process. And by that, it's like, what should you start with? Is it an underpaint? Is it a sketch, line art sketch? I mean, in this instance, it's digital, most likely. But you still have to have a process when you start painting. Uh, the simple thing, like the more complex, if you think about it like this, right? The more complex painting you have, if you made a mistake, you have to change something. You go in and like have to change the position of the arm or whatever. An easy fix would be, oh, just copy paste, right? But then you also have to do those adjustments, and those adjustments will always be harder to pull off to make it exactly right, because you're not doing the correct process, right? You're just copy pasting and doing adjustments on top to just try to match it so it doesn't look changed. Hey, Queen Mila. All praise Queen Mila. Chillstrand. I think you already said good morning to you, Chillstrand. Anyways, you get double up. Anyway, so that shows just like the importance of process. So like when you do something correctly, or not correctly, but when you have to build a painting up, you always have to practice each step. So for instance, in this painting, I started with a line drawing, so I knew where everything was, and then I didn't do the correct process. I didn't do how I usually do it. I kind of just jumped into color, and I've been paying for it for the whole for this whole painting, because I haven't had that correct balance, and I'm going over everything over and over to try to correct it, because I broke the way my process worked, right? The way I've practiced over and over for so many years now. And that's like, to go back to my initial comment about how beginners do that mistake, is because they don't have a process yet. They don't know how everything works, and they don't know like which step should go, which step should I do first. And that's what I kind of been trying to, I think, subconsciously help you guys with, by having, last week and the before was about this list on screen, right? What's the important things when you're doing a character design, or in this instance, this new list is about illustration. It is all of, it leans back on process, and it's, people don't really put a lot of attention to practicing your process, or questioning your process, and what should be put down first, like step one. And I think that's where really good artists separates themselves from beginners, is that because they've spent so much time practicing their trade, they also have taught themselves their own process, and how they go about creating paintings or creating designs. And because there's really no right and wrong, it depends mostly on how you do it yourself, like how do you approach a painting. And there's easier approaches to do, and harder ones, but there's nothing that's right or wrong, I think. But you also have to follow, because for illustrations, for the entertainment industry or concept art, it has to be something that sells well. It can't be too fine art. As as a side note, I didn't really have any more point to that than but so, like, starting with process and figuring out what to do. So coming back to the point, like I mentioned, like an example of changing an arm on a character at a later stage of a painting. Uh, what always works best, which I learned from a friend of mine, um, what he always did was I tried to correct it, like in the way, in a way which I gave the example of, I copy paste it, I tried to correct it. What he always did was that he just took a big brush with zero opacity, so it's just full blast, and he just painted away the area and then restarted the process again and redid everything, and the result was always stronger and more accurate. So what I learned from that is because if you look at, for example, artists like Jamie Jones and so on, like his paintings look the way they do because he has absolutely to 100% nailed his process. He knows exactly, like he plays chess with his art, right? He knows 2 steps ahead what move he's going to make. So he doesn't care about how do I make this work while he's painting. He's just looking at each stage and how to best lay the foundation for what's after. Not, no, like I talked about this on Friday. Like you should never paint a painting to try to make it finished on each stage. You should always try to see, okay, I'm going to put the red down because later I'm going to be making this move and that move on top to make it work. And a lot of people, especially in the beginning, they look at the painting as they're painting it and thinking, okay, what am I missing? What do I have to add to make it work? You should be thinking, what's the goal and how do I get there? And what's the next step to get there? Um, Magshen, I mean, if you would talk to if you talk to like a fine artist, like classically trained, they would say underdrawing or any drawing that helps you um, like that that helps you define it better, the better it is. Like do a correct underdrawing with correct proportions and all these things. And I mean, I do agree, but underdrawing is just for you to, like I mentioned, limit the guesswork. And the less you know, the more you have to rely on a very accurate underdrawing, right? Or it depends on if your process requires you to have a lot of underdrawing so that when you do paint, that keys into the painting. Or most likely, uh, it's just for you to know better. So to know your next step, correct your proportions, correct composition, correct lines, correct form. And then when you've done everything correct, okay, now I know exactly how to start painting. And you said you don't really know what the next step is. That just shows that you are unsure about your process and um, what is required for that next step to move the painting forward. So like a lot of people, they start with the temperature, like base temperature. So if you want a warm painting, you start with a warm like fill, so that you can paint into the light or paint light into the warm tone. But that is different, that's just a different process of how to do it. Flow wizard, yeah. But that's I think for all of you beginners and intermediates, like it's really important to take time and think about like what's the process that you should do. What I mean, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I haven't really prepared any class about this. This is just me ranting about it. I'm trying to have a cohesive train of thought. So bear with me. I'm jumping all over the place. But what I think, like for beginners and intermediates, like thinking about the process is important. But like, how do you know, right? That's the biggest problem for a lot of beginners. It's like, I'm a beginner. I don't know. How should I? Where's the information to help me uh, practice or learn about my process? And by that, you can only learn by learning as much as possible from different ways as possible for you to figure out, oh, I like doing it this way, right? That's why you do studies from different artists. You read about everything, try to absorb as much as possible so that um, when you have all that information in your head, you can assimilate it and put it to use uh, the way you like it, right? Because that's how our brains work. Um, and also, that's how we operate at the given moment. Like I noticed over all the, working with this for 10 years, that um, you push your knowledge to a certain point, and then you always go back to the basics and try to relearn the basics. And and because the first time went there to the basics, let's say 5 years ago, um, you had a specific mind state and a specific skill set and like a package of knowledge that you had at the time when you started learning, let's say 3-point perspective or color theory and so on. And then you fill your head with all this knowledge. You said, all right, I think I get it. And then you ventured forward, right? And trying to master that information you had. And you pick stuff up on the way, and you stop caring about certain other things, and you fill your head with all this knowledge. And then 2 years down the line, you go, okay, I kind of feel like I am at a limit here. So I have to learn something more. You always get this point like, okay, I got to get better at color, got to get better at composition or whatever. You feel like, okay, the current knowledge I have isn't enough for what I envision, right? So you go back to basics, you go back practicing things, go back to the well, as they say. And every time you do that, I've noticed let's say you go back to the same color theory that you practiced 5 years ago and read about and filled your brain with. And you go back to that after those 5 years of trying to implement it, and you go back and reread the exact same text with the exact same um, examples, and you go like, oh, you see it from a completely different light, and you pick something completely new up, and you go down that road, for a year or so, and you practice that, and then you learn and you see something new because you have practiced the process of implementing it, you have practiced the process of using it and learning it, and then you're at a completely different stage. And I think that's like a cool thing about process as well. The more you practice it, the more you it becomes, right? Like I like to paint in a certain way, uh, and you paint in a different way. But for me, for example, I deliberately have a bad start in my paintings. I know this because I love to make brush marks. Like I love pushing paint around. Like that's what makes it fun for me to paint. And I know that that's my process. I know that I have to define it to a certain degree. I need to set everything up to a certain degree so that I can paint on autopilot. There's certain knowledge that I can have that I know I don't even need to care about. It's there, and I can just rely on it. So in my process of preparing a painting and so on, is that I gotta do certain things at certain points, so I know that I can just switch on the autopilot, and I don't need to care about theory or anything. So, for example, in this painting, where I messed up was applying color to the painting. I didn't do the process that I should have done of preparing the palette and having the correct like temperature of shadows and light. I just kind of winged it and thought, okay, it's good enough, and just went on like pushing the painting forward. What I should have done, which I do, is define the palette first and the general relationship between all the colors, because in my process afterwards I can just keep painting what's already been established. I was supposed to try to find a let me actually try to find it now while I remember. I wonder if it's in there. Let me. It's so old art, crazy old. No, it wasn't there. No. Let me try to Google it. Like I tried to do it on Friday as well.
All right.
Hey, thanks for the follow, Sarmander. Much appreciated. I wonder if I write hurricane. Maybe that will be a better success. Give me a second. I'll just try this. Ah, typical. I should have spent some time trying to find it. But anyways, what I wanted to show was that when I started out, was that I was constantly practicing the approach. Like, how do I learn this painting thing? Like, I try different things. I constantly changed my process, like a process as in like approach to a painting, right? Like, should I do line art? Should I only paint with like alla prima? Like how is my mind working? I tried to figure out, and you could see it for like when I on that conceptart.org sketchbook, I constantly tested things and like looking at Craig Mullins, looking at you know, all different sorts of artists and how they do it. And then trying to pick up like, okay, how can when I didn't find the art I needed, I had to try to backtrack Uh, the timer is going, and I'm just looking for images. Okay, screw this. I'm not gonna find it. Um, so I like try to backtrack their process, and like, what do they add first? Like, how do they get, like Craig Mullins, like how does he get that complexity in his brushwork? Like I didn't understand. It's like, what the you know, because he does it in a very specific way, and you can see a Craig Mullins painting, you know, when you look at that, you go, that's Craig Mullins, clearly. So that it's not by magic that his paintings look the way they do, because he has the same process on every one, you know. And now and then I had the luxury to see, let's say, maybe a step-by-step process picture, or a time lapse from his paintings, and you would go, oh, that's the like the missing step I couldn't figure out. And then you try to apply that to your own study, or your own process. Like, oh yeah, I remember Craig Mullins, like he used the overlay on top of shadows. Like, why does he do that? And you sit there, experiment, and go, oh, okay, it does this, or try to figure out. And it's like, for me, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and process is just much like that. But I made an analogy of like chess. You have to think two steps forward. Jigsaw puzzle. It's all about, you know, in chess you can play it your way, but you still need to be like within the rules of the game, right? But it's the same with art. Uh, the process varies if you want to make something realistic or if you want to make something stylized, right? So just by that definition, your process should be different in theory, but you know, rules are meant to be broken. Yeah, doing master studies that's in copies is a waste of time. Flow Wizard about beginners, intermediates overrate the value of knowledge from books. You have to apply it. You have to understand it. You can't just monkey see, monkey do something. But books are great because there's someone who's been thinking about it and putting it down in words, right? But not just experimenting, but you have to try to understand what you're doing, right? Think about the moves you're going to make rather than just do. Don't think, okay, I have to do 5 studies and you just kind of whip them out. You really gotta, or crank them out, maybe is a better choice of words. You really have to think about, why are you doing the study of this artist? What are you trying to learn from it? And if you, and one of them should always be that like a constant thing that you should try to always learn is process. How do I paint things, and why do I do this study, right? Because it's about learning a lot of information for yourself so that you can formulate your mind better. And for example, that's why there's like katas in martial arts, right? A pattern you practice, or you do the same punch over and over. But first you have to learn how to punch. First you have to learn all the basics of martial arts, right? And then they go, all right, you learned everything now. Now we compete. And they go like, what compete? Like, oh, well, you know everything, all the basics, right? Just go and do shit. And you figure out that, oh, my arms are a little bit shorter than my opponent, so I can't punch the exact same way. So my punch is going to be different. And it's a stupid analogy, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's all about practicing. and understanding. My martial arts analogy is that martial arts is, when you understand it, you can break the rules. You can do whatever you want, as long as, you understand yourself. A lot of talking, a little bit of painting. All right, time's up, everyone. Hopefully, my rant made some sense. Um, for me, the pragmatic aspect of art is something you should always think about, because it's highly individual, like how you do art, but it also have to listen to rules, right? But rules are always meant to be broken, but you got to understand why the rules are there before you can break them. And I remember many years ago, a lot of artists said, "Oh, I do stylized art this way because I want to." But you go like, "But why have you stylized this way? Like, why are your anatomy off?" It's like, "Oh no, no, it's not correct. It's stylized." It's like, no, you first have to learn the anatomy and then understand yourself why you're making those moves, right? You just can't just say, "Oh, no, I know." That's someone just being ignorant, not wanting to understand. Flow Wizard, I do these streams every day. Yeah, cool. Glad it helped. Glad that my my crazy rant had at least some sort of some thread through it. All right. So thanks everyone for joining in. See you guys tomorrow morning at the same time. Thanks to all the new people. Thanks for the follows. Much love. Bye. See you on Discord. Outro time.